This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Frank, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me, Shannon.
Thank you. So today we're going to start with a game, my favorite part of the podcast personally, and I hope that you enjoy it. It is with you in mind, so it'll be kind of business related, kind of a little fun. Let's get into it. You ready?
Yep.
Alrighty. This is called Rank It or Tank It. So what you're going to let me do, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of different scenarios, and you're going to tell me whether you would rank it or tank it, meaning you agree with that strategy, rank it or tank it, as in, don't think it's very effective.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Alrighty. First one, AI generated blog posts. Rank it or tank it?
For the most part, tank it.
I would agree. Yeah, it's a lot of people are going to start doing it, and I'm sure it probably won't be great for SEO in the future. Maybe it can be working for the time being, but I would understand.
I think that honestly, the bigger problem is that even if you do manage to rank it, it's not going to drive towards any sort of business outcomes. Like your target customer isn't going to read your AI generated article and say, "Wow, this is the person I need to work with." That's my problem with it.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that that's not necessarily what's happening usually, unless you're like a thought leader in a space like HubSpot or something like that. It's not really something that's happening.
Well, HubSpot is also not using AI generated articles.
Exactly. They're genuinely providing, actual original thoughts. So that's something that's more valuable in the SEO space specifically as well. Okay, next one. Backlinks from news sites specifically.
Well, of course, those are among the best backlinks you're going to get. So I would say rank it.
Heck yeah. All right. Cold outreach on LinkedIn.
I would say probably. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't. We don't do it. We don't do it, but we don't really do like outbound sales at all. I could see how it might work for some people if you do it the right way, but I just find it annoying.
Yeah, I think a lot of people find it annoying, especially if you're coming with a very cookie cutter approach to reaching out to people. I think it has to be more individualized if you're really going to get someone's attention. So I think that maybe it is something that you have to put more thought into if you're really going to do it. And you also have to have like that foundation of being connected with people related. And it's a very complicated, it only works if you're doing it in a certain way.
Yeah.
Okay. Influencer partnerships.
Oh, definitely rank it.
Yeah. Do you, what's your opinion on, like smaller influencers or bigger influencers? Like what would you personally go with if you had to choose?
I think that all of that is relative though. Like what one person considers small and is big to someone else. So, and it depends on what it is that you're selling. So like in our space, getting Rand Fishkin to vouch for whatever your tool is could go very far. The Kardashians would consider him to be a micro influencer. However, somebody in the marketing space would consider him to be, to have huge influence, which he does.
No, that makes complete sense. There's definitely people that would contribute, believe that they're kind of in different spaces depending on what space they're in.
Yeah.
I do hear a lot in the agency space that many people prefer micro influencers over macro influencers because it's less money, but they see it as more lucrative because their audiences are more trusting of them because they kind of have more to lose if they're advertising a product or a service that's not good, since their following is much lower.
Yeah, I think it can go either way. At the same time, you're going. At the same time, there's a lot of instances of, in particular, with content that with virality, where it took a larger account really to start that amplification for for it to really become what it became.
Yeah, it
I
definitely.
keep comes to mind that song Despacito that was popular years and years ago. If Justin Bieber hadn't amplified it, no one would have ever heard it.
It's very, very true. It's not common that any like a song in a different language becomes very popular
Yeah.
specifically in the United States, unless it's Bad Bunny is a huge marketing. Like I would love for there to be like a huge study on how popular he became in the States, because it's something that is not very, other than maybe like Pitbull.
Yeah.
It's not very common.
And I think that it has to do with who's amplifying it. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that it's always going to be the case where your macro influencers have less impact. I actually think they can have an outsized impact.
Mhm.
It also depends on what you consider macro versus a micro influencer. Because again, in our space, I don't think many marketing agency owners would consider Rand Fishkin to be a micro influencer, but he kind of is.
Yeah.
But and at the same time, if you're a beauty influencer and you have 50,000 followers, you're considered like a nano influencer almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, because I think it depends on how large the space is, like how much
Yeah, that's
noise
so.
there's in it, because there can be a macro influencer like follower wise, you can just look at someone's following and be like, that's a macro influencer, depending on what your following is personally. But then you compare it to like the top of that industry in influencing, and they're they're on completely different scales, and
Yeah.
that kind of changes your perspective on how valuable maybe their word is.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, one more scenario for rank it or tank it, since we're already getting into conversations from these. Okay, I'm trying to think of which one I should. Okay, this one's kind of funny, I guess. Using emojis in meta descriptions.
Oh, I've never done it. I don't think that Google displays it anymore. I remember years ago, you could get Google to display emojis in title tags, because I remember people here doing stuff like that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and then I think that they stopped displaying them.
Hmm.
So, and that's the title tags, though. We never did anything with the meta descriptions. The meta
Hmm.
descriptions honestly end up getting rewritten all the time, like 50+% of the time anyway. So we don't give much thought to them anymore, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I actually didn't know that it was something that became obsolete in that specific area as well. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I remember this was a years ago, but I remember at one point we were using the title tags to kind of like using emojis in the title tags to kind of like have our results stand out. And I remember at some point just Google stopped showing them, and
Mm.
like somebody being bummed out. It was so long ago that I don't even think that anybody that works here was even around when it happened. This was like maybe even before the pandemic.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think that happens unfortunately in so many different aspects of SEO all the time. Like you're
Yeah.
doing a strategy that's working really well and it becomes obsolete because there's some kind of change.
Yeah, I mean it's a hack, honestly, and
Yeah.
hacks and tactics. I don't like to focus on them too much because they stop working.
Yeah, exactly. I think I just had a discussion the other day about if something's kind of like too easy in the SEO space, you kind of know that it's not the right strategy. Like something that seems oversimplified. Actually, I think it was specifically about AI generation for blog posts or just like LinkedIn posts, like to boost your your following or whatever it may be. Like at some point, different sites are going to catch up with the fact that everyone's doing that, and they're going to, you know, prioritize people that are actually providing value. And unfortunately, AI generation will maybe not be will not be featured in those kind of like when people are looking things up in those spaces.
Yeah, most certainly.
So you founded Saga Pixel with a strong emphasis on SEO. Speaking of, what like initially drew you to that specific aspect of digital marketing? Like how, and maybe how did it change from when you first thought of it to now?
What I like about search, what I like about search today is that there's high intent. There's generally speaking, unless you're doing just straight blogs, there's high intent. So it's one of the few. It was and still is one of the few areas of marketing where it's easier to get attribution for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike with social media, for example, you'll often find that a business can build a large following, but it doesn't necessarily equate to a commensurate increase in business for them. That's rarely going to be the case when it comes to search. And we were in particular in the beginning working primarily with small business. A lot of the time in the types of small businesses where search was how you found providers.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of what attracted me to it. In other words, what we were going to be able to deliver from it. The other part of it, though, if you think about that I really liked about it was the technical aspect added challenges to it, where with social media, for example, as a marketing channel, I think that there's a certain element of, oh, just anybody can do it. You know, you're just posting some stuff on Facebook.
Yeah, there's a lot of
my niece knows how to do that. But there are very few people. I think that people, first of all, with social media, people don't understand if you want it to actually be effective, there's a lot of technique and it's extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
With SEO, I think that happens less because people get intimidated by the technical aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, you as the provider have less resistance to like, no, you don't know what you're doing. And this is why you should have a professional plan your content for your Instagram, or why you should have a professional editor actually edit your YouTube videos versus you know, filming it with the camera pointed up your nose.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I think that it's very daunting for the average person to get involved in SEO, and I think that technical part is exactly why. I think that with the amount of influencers, as we mentioned, out there in the world now, many of them being very average, normal people, there is a lot of noise, and kind of everyone feels like they can do it now because there's so much noise. Whereas, like, properly, you know, getting like search traffic is something that is much more difficult than just kind of putting some videos out there or some content out there. It's something that like will propel you.
The thing that's different though is that like anybody can publish something on Instagram. Anybody can put a page up on a website. Yet there's a recognition that there's a technical aspect to SEO that makes a lot of marketers not want to touch it, but they all think like, oh yeah, I can post stuff, and if it's not doing well on social, it's the algorithm.
Yeah,
it's not that you don't know what you're doing; it's the algorithm.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people do like to place blame on the algorithm, but they're not actually like thinking thoroughly about the fact that SEO could really help them. Like a good SEO strategy could help them. I think that a lot of them I think it's also because a lot of people go viral by accident, and then they can maintain that kind of following afterwards. So I think that a lot of people are often, especially content creators, are looking to go viral rather than have like a sustained approach to gaining a following and like clients, if it's a service or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think that is like similar to the kind of speak of shiny object syndrome, of like you're kind of looking for a short-term goal that might not like last. Whereas if you focused more on like your strategy for gaining followers, then you might have like a more sustained like customer base.
Yeah, but ultimately, everybody thinks that they can do all of those other channels for themselves. The only exceptions being because of the technical aspects involved with Google Ads and SEO. There's more openness to bringing in a professional, and that attracted me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think people can acknowledge that takes a lot more. Like anyone can kind of sit in front of a camera. Maybe you can't make something quality, but you can still do that. Whereas an SEO professional is someone that, you know, can really change the course of things for someone. And that's something that you can't necessarily, you know, learn yourself very quickly. And it's constantly changing. So you have to stay educated on the space as well.
Yep.
Speaking of, how did your perspective on SEO change with the rise of AI and ChatGPT search?
So I knew as soon as I saw it that, first of all, this was going to reduce a lot of friction for informational searches, and that there was a lot of the types of content that businesses have been doing that they just need to stop doing. It was going to be a waste. It's just that AI was going to take that over. I still firmly, it's not that I believe, I know that there are topics where people want to hear from experts about this topic. They don't want an AI generated answer. They want to hear from somebody that's been in the trenches and did the thing. So I don't think that SEO, I didn't think then, I don't think now that SEO driven content marketing is going to completely die. But what I saw was, okay, we always qualified all of our content topics with, first of all, is it on the buyer's journey? Can I rank for it? And is there enough search potential that it's worth doing this topic? When we were doing like blogs, we added into that AI. So is it on the buyer's journey? Is someone going to be satisfied with an AI answer to this question? Can I rank for it? Is there going to be enough search volume for it to be worth our time?
So what kinds of things did you see that kind of changed when those things, when ChatGPT became more popularized? Like what did you see that wasn't working anymore?
So let me give you a couple examples. There was one. So I put an example on LinkedIn today about this topic specifically, and let's say for argument's sake, I wanted to set up. I've been learning how to use ManyChat to set up automate some automations. Before ChatGPT, I would have Googled it and whatever the top article was, I would have read it and I would have tried to piece together the information they were giving me with it and done it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, at no point was I really generating business for anybody. It was probably all a waste of time for the company that spent the money to write the article to begin with, but that's besides the point. Now I would go to ChatGPT and tell them this is exactly what I want to do, walk me through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a much better example. At the same time, what hasn't changed is, let's say I'm doing digital PR, I'm doing data-driven link building, digital PR, however you want to call it. How do polls how does poll data-driven content tend to perform in comparison to publicly available data, like from the Census Bureau driven content when you're pitching journalists, for example? ChatGPT can't answer that question. It doesn't know. You know who does know? Beth Nunnington from Journey Further, like the people that are speaking at conferences and that have done extensive campaigns where they've seen the polls suck, or the YouGov polls are actually amazing. So that's still going to be around, but the topics, I interviewed a guy for an SEO director position that was telling us that he had in his previous role this short code generator or something like that was the number one source of traffic to their website, and they hung their hat on that. But all that traffic dried up in the last year and a half. But you know what didn't dry up? Their leads. Their leads are exactly the same as what they were before this huge drop in traffic with the AI overviews. But their traffic's down because like, honestly, this content wasn't driving towards business goals to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think is okay. So I think that idea is something that people don't realize. Are there like any other kind of like common myths that you find about SEO or like digital strategy that you find like you have to explain to clients?
I think that for the most part, with most businesses, in particular with local businesses, like blogging will get you traffic, but all it's doing is muddying the waters as far as how effective your SEO work's been.
Mm.
Where you can get, we have a client that's a large HRT clinic, hormone replacement therapy, and they're using it to treat the symptoms of women going through menopause, like hot
Mm-hmm.
flashes and stuff. The previous agency, one of the next articles that they were going to do is what is menopause? Like, what 49-year-old woman needs to Google that? That's not your
Yeah.
target audience. Whoever's Googling it, it's not who you're trying to sell estradiol to. And at the same time, the previous agency had not planned any content around like estradiol pills versus cream. Because this is a question that your target audience has, and it is something that you can rank for, and it is something that someone that's Googling this that sees a button for like, oh, I can buy this online, they may tap the button and actually buy it.
Yeah, no one's
So,
gonna look up what that is because everyone kind of knows what it is. If anything, they're gonna look up symptoms of it or
well, at the
like
same time, there is search volume for what is menopause, but whoever is behind that search volume is not their target, not the
yeah,
target customer.
it's
So,
maybe men, husbands that are trying to understand.
yeah, or maybe even kids or whoever it
Yeah.
is. It's not somebody that has their credit card out ready to try to treat their symptoms.
Yes.
So we um so I would say that the number one myth that I see, that I don't even think it's business owners, I think it's marketers in general, and a lot of the time SEOs will say like, well, you've got to write blogs to establish your topical authority. I have seen one of the top results for Dermatologist NYC doesn't have a blog on her website. In
Mm-hmm.
in the most competitive market in the United States, maybe the world, for dermatology, and she's a sole practitioner going up against some like 1,500-pound gorillas in that market because you have private equity backed firms that she's competing against, and she's outranking them. She doesn't have a blog. So you don't. So I guess one of the myths would be you don't need to be blogging in order to rank well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment, especially the amount of agencies that I've spoken to. I check out everyone's websites, and I would say that maybe like 70 to 80% of them don't have blogs at all. And they're clearly like somewhat successful in their space because I wouldn't be talking to them if they weren't.
What's funny that you find with SEO agencies is that it's very rare to find one that has grown through SEO. That the majority of them, they'll say everybody has to be doing every business needs SEO. All right, great. What have you been doing for your own SEO? Oh well, and then the excuses.
It's
And
funny.
the we on the other hand have grown through SEO. It's still the main channel that we get our business through. But that's also to say that there's a specific market segment that you can serve through search, if you're trying to drive leads through search. If what you're doing is enterprise, like there's very little of that volume is coming through organic search.
Yeah, it is definitely it's funny I spoke to a thought leader recently in like the SEO space specifically, like very like well researched in SEO specifically, and I've also talked to SEO based agencies. And it's funny because there are many things in which I spoke to with founders or CEOs of agencies that varied in opinion very much to this person that I talked to previously, that clearly probably had more knowledge on what they were speaking about. And it's just very interesting to see the different perspectives on what people believe works. And I think that kind of is a testament to kind of what you just said, of that a lot of people say that they can, create traffic for a business, but they aren't necessarily doing it in a way that is strategically sound. It's just something that maybe worked for them in the past or has. And I think that's the unfortunate side of the agency world, and why many people get burned by an agency or whatever it may be, because it's something that doesn't end up working for them as a client. And of course, there are things that are well researched and should work, and sometimes just don't, depending on what it is. But I think that there are a lot of situations and scenarios in which maybe not everyone is as up to snuff on SEO as they would like to admit.
Here's another perspective with the thought in regards to the thought leaders. A lot of them are really good at social media, but not very good at SEO. And a lot of the time, they're not even doing SEO. Like their job is to be a thought leader, and they're running a business, and they haven't fired up Screaming Frog in a year and a half. But they've been really good at they're good at LinkedIn, or they're good at LinkedIn is usually going to be the thing.
Yes.
Just like Salt Bay is not the best. The best restaurant if you need a steak in the world, but he's probably the most well-known steak person, or at least was for a while. I think you have the same thing happen when it comes to the thought leadership in our space.
Yeah, it is very interesting how people can position themselves to be someone that knows a lot in a space but may not actually know much at all, especially to your comment on there are many agencies that maybe put emphasis on SEO but aren't necessarily the best at it. I think or not necessarily doing it for themselves, so they're not as experienced, is very common, I think, maybe in the agency space, because there's so many agencies that started ranking for a reason in which they're not completely aware of, or for a specific purpose that was unrelated to their SEO effort.
Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be.
So your agency specifically serves law firms and healthcare companies, as you kind of mentioned briefly before. Do you notice, because I've talked to other agencies that also specialize in those spaces. Do you personally notice a trend with how people search these specific businesses in comparison to maybe others?
So we don't really do too much work with law firms anymore. We're almost entirely healthcare providers these days. The changes that I've seen have been, I think that and it depends on over what period we're talking about. I would say the big change that I've seen over the last 5 years is that Instagram has become more of a part of the consideration phase in the buyer's journey, where there, in particular with healthcare, and in particular with things with aesthetics, like the med spas, plastic surgeons, the dermatologists, and so forth. It's very frequent that someone will get discovered through organic search, look at reviews, and then go to an Instagram account.
Interesting.
That has changed. You also have, I think another thing that's changed has been social search. Like if I want a recipe these days, I'm not the only one that goes straight to TikTok. It's faster, and there's going to be no fluff, and you can actually see the person doing it. So it beats Google in every way. I also think that you have some platforms that have eaten up a lot of the search, the search volume that was out there, and just nobody noticed. Like in particular with clothing, I bet you, I know my wife doesn't. She doesn't Google clothes. She opens up the Nordstrom app.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, you have people that's her favorite store. That's where she buys her stuff. So, as far as what I've seen is with the way people search, I think that the platforms where they perform these searches have expanded greatly. Uh, and and I think that it's only going to change. It's only going to happen more and more. I think Google's only going to lose more and more search volume, and not only because of ChatGPT. I think it has been losing it. I think this whole Google owns 90% of the search market is a fallacy, because I don't think it's including any data from Amazon or the Nordstroms or the Zappos of the world.
Yeah, I think it's also it was very eye-opening to me to discuss kind of like the difference in how people like search on ChatGPT versus Google, because a lot of people are still using Google, but they're kind of using it for more simplified terms for things rather than ChatGPT has the ability to answer more complex questions, because a lot of people don't know how to optimally search on Google. So they realize that they're getting better answers by asking like a question like a human would to another human on ChatGPT, whereas Google is kind of like 2 words, or because that's where you're going to get your best results for something, is when it's simplified, because of course. And so thinking about that, it's I think it kind of in my mind differentiated the reasons why one would go to one search and not the other, based off of just that idea of what they're best at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think so. I haven't seen with our healthcare providers a ton of ChatGPT leads come in. I can tell you for Saga Pixel, the leads that we get from ChatGPT are more qualified than the ones that come in through organic search.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I honestly do not know. It may be that they have a little bit more trust. I have no idea, but I've noticed that I get a lot fewer, almost no unqualified leads from ChatGPT.
That is really interesting. I would love,
Yeah.
what if or when you ever figure that out, I'd love to understand.
Yeah. If I ever do, it's definitely something I'll share, but I don't know.
Okay, one last question before we go, because we're a little over time, but this is something that I always love because I think being forward-looking is very good. Okay, so for looking ahead for the next 5-10 years, what do you foresee changing in the SEO space?
I think that there is going to eventually be a contraction of the entire industry by about 20-25%. I think that you're going to see I think a lot of people, for a lot of agencies, a lot of consultants for a long time have been riding the low value traffic increases to blog posts to justify their fees and to keep companies kind of staying with them. And once all of that blog traffic, that low value blog traffic kind of evaporates, I think you're going to have a lot of marketing directors that say like this isn't work. Like if you're not those marketing, I think you're going to have a lot of marketing directors. They're going to have a harder time justifying the budget. And overall, I think there's just going to be a lot. There's going to be less money floating around in this space. I also think that eventually we'll get to the point where more and more businesses realize what the actual potential of social is, and I think they're going to start taking it more seriously.
Yeah, I think that it is a common occurrence that a lot of people think that it's not necessary for their business, or like it just doesn't make sense for their industry. And I think that's just there's just a way of doing it for each industry that might differ. But I think that it's always going to be valuable because social media will just continue to advance and, be more critical to, especially the younger generations. Once we get a little older, it's going to be way more valuable to continue to go through social media because it's going to be much more familiar.
I know that everybody talks about like social media being so like younger generation focused, but I think older people are too. Like I think 50, 60, 70-year-olds are all on social media all day long as well. It just they haven't had the like the stereotype created about them yet, but they're all on Instagram and Facebook all day long as well.
Oh yeah, no. I consider they always talk about iPad kids, but I'm like, what about iPad like grandparents?
Grandmas.
Like there's many iPad grandparents, including my parents that are also grandparents. Um, but yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that it's kind of a misconception that not everyone utilizes it. It's just um they have to understand their audience and like which one they're using and how their search traffic is actually working and like how those are incorporated within it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a really great time talking about SEO. I love talking about different aspects in depth about it because everyone kind of has their own way of thinking about it. So I feel like I learn more and more from every guest. So I really appreciate it.
Ah, very cool. Well, thank you for having me on, Shannon.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope you got to learn as much from this episode as I did. And I hope that you get to check out others. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.